welcome to the Flourishing Center podcast. I'm Emilia Zhivatovskaya, your host and founder of the Flourishing Center. We are training the change agents of the world and equipping them with research-based tools for healthy, happy, and successful living. And we're so grateful that you're here. Each episode features 3 sections. First is the Science Says section, where we summarize a recent research study and show you how to put the science into action. Next, we give you a research-based life hack with simple strategies for incorporating positive psychology into your life for greater well-being. And then our Practitioner Corner is where we interview someone who's out there living, breathing, and spreading positive psychology in their own unique way. Learn about how they're growing their personal and professional work and get inspired with strategies for how you might use positive psychology in your own life. Thanks for listening, and let's dive in. Today's Science Says focuses on how to make thinking positive thoughts a bit easier. Learn to control your mind chatter for our life hack. And in our Practitioner Corner, meet the woman behind the new line of dolls and characters that are teaching positive psychology to children. Let's get started with our Science Says. Hello and welcome to the Science Says segment of the Flourishing Center podcast. Today we're going to be talking about a new research study that has recently come out about positive thinking. Now, you've all heard the words think positive. Have you ever thought that perhaps this might actually be hard to do? I mean, people make it sound so easy when they say just think positive. But if you've ever struggled with that statement or with that activity, you'll be pleased to know that you are not alone. A research study that came out in August 2017, just this month, in the journal Emotion by Aaron Westgate, Timothy Wilson, and Dr. Dan Gilbert has actually confirmed that it's not so easy to have positive thoughts. In particular, positive thoughts that are pleasurable thoughts. They called this article, "With a Little Help for Our Thoughts, Making It Easier to Think for Pleasure." In this study, researchers identify that it requires some effort for people to actually hold a pleasant, positive thought. Their research suggests that many people don't necessarily enjoy deliberately attempting to have pleasurable thoughts inside of their head. Now, what they mean by pleasurable thoughts is think about the daydreaming, the mind chatter that you might have in your mind when you are distracted. What their research has uncovered is that when people are engaged in this type of mind chatter, they may not necessarily enjoy trying to have those thoughts be positive because they might need to use mental resources or mental fuel that they either are not wanting to utilize or might not know how to utilize. So when you tell a person to use their mind chatter for their advantage and you say, think positive, or take some time to think about pleasurable thoughts. If your mind is just going to wander, engage in positive thinking. What they found is that people don't actually enjoy doing this. I thought the study was really, really interesting for many reasons. First, they conducted many experiments in this one article. Here's an example of one of the studies they conducted. They asked a group of college students to participate in a study where they would be texted 4 times during the day between the hours of 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. for 7 days. With each notification that they got, they were asked to rank and describe their mind chatter or their thoughts that they were having in that moment. They were selecting from one of about 16 categories on a drop-down menu, and they would examine their mind chatter and ask whether or not they were paying attention inward or were they paying attention externally. Were they problem solving? Were they in conversation with a person? Were they ruminating? Did they feel like they were in flow? Did they feel like they were daydreaming? And in addition to asking them what type of thoughts they had, participants also rated their mood, how likely it was that the thoughts were happening intentionally versus accidentally, and they also identified how likely it was that the thoughts were positive or negative. In this study, they actually confirmed their hypothesis. They showed that people enjoyed pleasant thoughts less if they occurred intentionally rather than occurring unintentionally, meaning just accidentally. Sometimes in positive psychology, we call this spontaneous positive thoughts. And those who were having pleasant thoughts that were induced were actually less likely to enjoy them. In the next study, they decided to see what would happen if they would intervene. And instead of just tracking their thoughts, participants were first asked to make a list of the types of thoughts they might have about pleasant things. Essentially, they primed them to make a list of positive memories or things that would induce positive emotion. Then they were asked to use this list and pay attention to a pleasurable thought. And what they found is the simple act of having people write down what it was that felt pleasurable to them actually increased their experience of positive emotions. So this is a really simple and fascinating little tiny bit of evidence in positive psychology. From my perspective, I think it's a really interesting example for perhaps why gratitude journals work, or keeping a positive portfolio of things that make you happy or bring about positive emotion. What these authors are hypothesizing is that thinking of positive events or thinking pleasurable thoughts is not necessarily easy for our brain to do. Not because we don't have things in our environment that we can think of that are positive or pleasurable. It's just that it requires effort to focus your mind there when your mind might be focused on other things. So it's a neat and simple way that we can encourage ourselves and others to keep a gratitude journal so that you can have a place to go to for your pleasurable thoughts or positive thoughts when you want to. Or keep things around you that stimulate you to reflect on positive memories or things that you can savor. So the results of this study have actually showed that pleasant thoughts that occur intentionally can be less enjoyable than those that occur unintentionally. However, when people are primed to think pleasurably or are given an opportunity to reflect on the types of memories that they have that can help them think more positive, they think of this as a thinking aid. Not only does it make it easier for people to focus on those positive thoughts, but it actually makes it more enjoyable to do, and therefore people are going to be more likely to do it. In the discussion section, the authors make some great points. They say that at any given moment, people have a choice as to what they pay attention to. We can pay attention internally, we can pay attention externally, and we can guide the trajectory of our thoughts. They say that this research might have some interesting applications. For example, and I quote, "People are often in situations in which it's easier to, quote, just think than to find an enjoyable external activity, such as when we're stuck in a traffic jam trying to fall asleep at night or sitting in a boring lecture. People always have their own minds at their disposal, and it would be a useful tool to be able to deliberately generate enjoyable thoughts. Indeed, one study found that insomniacs go to sleep more quickly when instructed to think about interesting and engaging topics while trying to fall asleep." The authors go on to say that many mundane external activities such as browsing Facebook are enjoyable in the short term but detrimental to long-term happiness. End quote. So I encourage you to give this a try. Don't just try to, quote, think positive or have pleasant thoughts. Make a list of things that make you feel good. Make a list of things that make you feel grateful. Make a list of things that have recently occurred that you feel proud of so that you have a list that you can go to when your mind is wandering. And then, as you find yourself bored, maybe take a moment to pause and think a pleasant thought and use this as an intervention to begin to create small little micro changes to how you're thinking throughout the day. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to sharing more Science Says with you next time. Next up, we have life hacks. Today's life hack is about controlling your thoughts. If you've ever struggled to calm down your mind or to focus on a single object for more than a few seconds at a time, you're not alone. Many people find that taming their thoughts, their monkey mind, is a difficult thing to do. And I want to give you 3 simple strategies today that can help you control your thoughts and feel more mastery over your mind. The first tool is mindfulness. Eckhart Tolle points out that just noticing that you're not in the present moment, that your mind has wandered, that your thoughts are elsewhere, is a strategy for bringing you into this present moment. So mindfulness helps us slow down our thoughts, focus our thoughts in the direction that we want to go. Eckhart Tolle has a great strategy for this. He invites people to just use the words, "I'm back," and think the thought, "I'm back," as a way of bringing themselves back into the moment. Another strategy that you can use to incorporate mindfulness into your life so that you are more present is to tune into your senses. When you are focusing yourself on your senses, your sense of sight, your sense of smell, your sense of hearing, taste, touch, you are coming into the present moment. And that's another way of redirecting your thoughts when your thoughts are coming at you from so many different directions. A third strategy that helps us come into the present moment is simply pointing and naming. Just the other day, I was working with a coaching client that's been with me for many, many years, and she was expressing a particularly stressful moment that she was having at work where her mind was just going all over the place. And she said, "Amelia, you'd be so proud of me. I went back to basics. I was walking down the street and just pointing and naming cab, light post, door, street sign, person." And she used that for many, many blocks walking down the streets of New York City until she was able to calm her mind and come into the present moment. So you want to think of your mind as a stage. There's only so many actors or players you can fit onto the stage at a time. And if your thoughts are overwhelming, you can use mindfulness as a strategy to bring you back into the moment. You can use Eckhart Tolle's strategy of saying, "I'm back," tune into your senses, or simply point and name as a way of gathering yourself into the present moment. These are just 3 simple strategies, and tune in for future life hacks for other strategies of how to work with your mind chatter, not just distract yourself and come back into the present moment, but how to alchemize the thoughts into thoughts that maybe are not just overwhelming you, but maybe into thoughts that are empowering you. Next up, listen to Positive Psychology in Action with our Practitioner Corner. My guest today is Tara Kennedy Kline. She is a parenting advocate and author. She is the owner and creator of the Within Me Now line, which you're going to get to hear all about in our interview with her today. Some things that you might not know about Tara is, in addition to being a graduate of our 16th CAP program from Philadelphia, she is the mother of 2 grown children who are both her inspiration and her challenge, and she married her high school sweetheart, which is just such an inspiration and such a fun thing. And I'm so excited to be here with Tara and with you guys today because she is doing some really inspiring work, bringing positive psychology to children, bringing positive psychology to children of special needs. And she is just a joy and an inspiration. And I'm so grateful to be here with her and that I get to share her with you all. So welcome, Tara. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amelia. I'm happy to be here.
Let's get started. So what drew you to positive psychology?
I've been a life coach for a while, and it's kind of one of those things that I wrote a book in 2009 dealing with a lot of the same tenets that are taught in positive psychology, and I just didn't even know it existed. So a friend of mine, we were working on a program for kids, and she said, "I just got started in this amazing program called CAP, and I think it's exactly what you would love. Like, it's right up your alley." So I looked into it, and Lewis had to call me probably like 47 times because I'm not a dive-in kind of person. But it was one of the best things that I've ever done for myself, for my family, for my business, and my community. It really just aligned so much with the belief systems that I already teach and live by. So it just made sense.
Oh, that's awesome. And you have gone on now to create this incredible gift to the world, and you're bringing positive psychology to young people. And those of you who are not familiar with our model here at the Flourishing Center, we have this theory that while people come to the work of positive psychology calling themselves all sorts of different nouns, I'm a teacher, I'm a coach, I'm a speaker, I'm a mom, I'm a doctor, I'm a yoga instructor, mindfulness teacher, that while they call themselves different nouns, what they actually do falls under one of 5 verbs. And you, Tara, are an inventor in our model because you invent experiences for people, both through the written word, through the spoken word, and now through this whole other unique way of bringing positive psychology literally into the hands of children. So tell us about what you've been up to.
Sure. What I've created was I actually was working with another woman and to develop a product line called Within Me Now. And what we were trying to do was give parents and children positive experiences through the messages that each one of these characters would share or would own. And through the course of my positive psychology class, I realized that within me now was more than just affirmations. It was actually each character could represent a petal in the PERMA V model. And so for my graduation project, I introduced the 6 characters. It was originally 4 characters. And basically what they are is it's an 18-inch doll, and with each doll is a board book, and they're storyboards. So they're not words, there's experiences, just like what you said. And so what we're doing is we're encouraging the child, the reader, to put themselves into that scenario and to say, what do I think that person might be experiencing? What do I think that they might be feeling? How would I resolve this issue if I were in that person's shoes? So the reader becomes part of the community, the Within Me Now community, which are made up of our 6 friends, and they are following the PERMA V model. It's Penny, Eve, Rusty, Max, Amber, and Violet. So the thing that I love about these characters is they're so diverse, and they also represent new challenges that our children are facing in classrooms that we maybe didn't pay a lot of attention to before. So, for instance, Eve, our character Eve, who she represents engagement, she has Asperger's. So one of the things that she struggles with is self-regulation and choice and decision-making. And so what we do is we try to teach through Eve's experiences and scenarios how children can make better choices or find their purpose and their flow and kind of live into those things and be accepting of those things. So there are so many great lessons in positive psychology for adults that absolutely can apply to children and help them have better experiences in school and with their friends and just growing up in general.
Oh, this is incredible, Tara. And for parents or people out there listening that might not have this doll in their hand or this curriculum in their hand, what would you recommend are just some simple ways that you've experienced positive psychology put into practice that they might be able to start playing around with or implementing?
So the thing that was most powerful for me when I was unknowingly teaching this to my own children back in 2009, it started out with something as simple as a cooperative gratitude journal. And, you know, we hear adults talking about keeping a gratitude journal for themselves, and we don't think about doing that with our children. And so what I started doing was every night when I would put my kids to bed, we would sit down and I would ask them a few questions, and I would answer the questions too. And by doing that, we got to know each other on a really intimate level, which is what I think is the basis for all wonderful parenting and development, child development, is communication and understanding. And so what we would do is we would talk about the 5 things that we were grateful for that day. And then maybe we would ask a question like, what's something that went wrong today that I would do differently if I could do it over? And it's really giving children this concept of resilience. And I can overcome these challenges, and there is a second chance. And it's instilling hope and positivity into their mindset. Maybe if something went wrong and a child failed at something that they were really excited about, then they doubt that they'll ever be able to do it again, or they doubt themselves. And just by instilling gratitude in their minds and giving them hope for being able to do it again or do it better, grow into it, those are just some things that I do on a daily basis. I started when my kids were 7 years old, and it's really formed them into people that I dreamed that they would be, but I never imagined they could be this wonderful. So yeah, it's changed our relationships too. So that would be one place that I would absolutely start, is don't keep your gratitude to yourself. Share it with your children.
I love that. Don't be stingy with the expression of gratitude. Make sure you share it. Oh, I love that. And I love that the opportunity to come together and to give voice to some of the challenges and to say challenges happen. We work through them. How can we work through them? What might I have done differently so that they have the opportunity to pivot and to redirect?
And giving our children the blessing of a growth mindset. because I think so many children today are stuck and they don't believe that they can grow into the things that they dream as much as we think they do. We tell them that they can, but it's a matter of intrinsically believing it themselves.
I'm curious, how have you used positive psychology in your own life to navigate or overcome a challenge?
I think that it's so much of who I am that it's hard to pinpoint one thing. But it's funny, I was just talking to one of my friends today before we got on the phone together, and I was pitching Within Me Now to her because she has an amazing network of people that she works with that are more widely known. And I was kind of pitching the idea to her and to see if it's something that she would be willing to take to her network. And she said, we already have something similar. And then she gave me the name of it. And I have to be honest, 2 or 3 years ago, just hearing that would have put up such a block for me. Mm-hmm. It would have been such a stake in the ground that this is not what I'm meant to do. Look, it's already out there. It's already being done. But the fact that I have this basis in positive psychology, that I know that my story is unique, and I know that there is a reason for me doing what I'm doing, and I know that no one can tell this the way I can, and that, as many people have said it already, this isn't pie. There's enough space out there for all of us. There is enough room for all of us to share our unique brilliance. And so it didn't stop me because I have a growth mindset now. I have a deep-seated belief that I can succeed if I just keep powering through and sharing the message that I was born to share.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that story with us. It's such a great example of how, one, we are wired as human beings to want to help others. And I'm sure that your friend was meaning, saying, oh, there's something like this out there. Have you considered this? Not realizing that, something like that would be very easy to squash your vision or your dream. And that would probably be the last thing that she was intending on doing. But it's so natural to take it in that way. And the fact that you were able to recognize what it brought up for you, but keep yourself focused on that's just one person's opinion, and that there is so much to go around, and focusing on learning and growing to bounce back and to keep focusing on your own work and your own path is just so inspiring. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
So we emphasize the importance of self-care. We say in both positive psychology and mind-body medicine that self-care is health-care. And I'm curious, what do you do to attend to your own self-care?
There are so many things. I love daily exercise and just getting on the treadmill every single day. It's something that I had gotten away from until I started going back, or until I went to the CAP classes. And I just realized that because I always had this belief system that I had to exercise to get myself skinny, or I had to exercise to make myself look a certain way. And when I realized that I was exercising to, make my brain work more, or I had some of my best ideas when I'm on the treadmill, or when I'm walking outside, or, when I'm just gardening. So just making my body move more is one of the best things that I do for myself. And changing the way that I eat. I learned some great habits from my classmate. I ate a can of ravioli for breakfast this morning, so it's not a perfect science. But I do find myself making better choices when I have choices to make. And that has made a huge difference in my life. And I guess the final thing is surrounding myself with people who share my common belief for a more positive community, a more positive environment for my kids. I allowed myself to remain surrounded by some really negative people for a really long time. And just anticipating going to the live classes, anticipating going there and being surrounded by that tribe of people, I just realized that I needed to get more of that in my everyday life, and I couldn't keep paying for, classes to do it. So I had to create that same type of environment with the people that I live and work and spend time with in my everyday life. So although it's not easy sometimes to bless and release those people who are bringing negative energy into our space, it definitely made a difference for me.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Tara. I had this aha moment last weekend, actually. We had our positive psychology graduates go through Flourishing skill group training with us, and one of the students mentioned something about how she realized that one of the reasons she kept signing up for more and more training programs, and she was just a forever student, is she realized that she wanted community, and it was the community that she wanted. And I had this moment where I just kind of welled up with tears inside. And this happens to me often, where my body will react, or I'll have like an emotional reaction, and I have to rewind the script and be like, wow, interesting body. Okay, so what is it about this that's triggering this emotion with me? How fascinating. And I had a realization that I love creating these learning experiences and these programs for people. And yes, why I too was a certification junkie was that at the end of the day, I was seeking belonging and a place where I could feel that I belong amongst people who do see the world in this way, who are passionate about making a difference. And it's not because I want to just surround myself with people who think the way that I do or believe the way that I do. It's just more this connection about people who are wanting to do something about it, and how much being with those people fuels me. And so it was a great moment for me to realize, that is another reason why I've been so addicted to learning programs my whole life, so much so that I now just create them myself for others. And it was a great aha moment for me.
That's pretty awesome. And it's quite true that the reason that I'm so passionate about bringing Within Me Now into classrooms is because I want classrooms to feel that way for all students. I want every student in a public school classroom to feel the way we do when a whole bunch of positive psychology students are getting together in a classroom, and maybe we don't all agree, but we respectfully communicate that with each other, and we are all more focused on lifting each other up than we are on tearing each other down. I really want to create that environment for children. It's not a she foo-foo thing either. So many people are like, oh, kids need a thicker skin these days. I don't think so. I think they need a bigger heart. I think they need more self-love. But I don't think they need a thicker skin. I don't think anybody needs a thick skin to get through life.
Yeah, actually, there was an interesting study that was just presented at the most recent International Positive Psychology Association World Congress, where one of the main stage speakers has been tracking empathy over the past 10, 20 years. And we actually see a drastic decline in empathy rates and self-reported empathy. And I think that what you just mentioned there, that we don't need a thicker skin, is actually that we have unconsciously started to develop too thick of a skin. And part of it is because many children have stimulus overload. And because they have stimulus overload, they actually might have to be numbing and trying to censor the amount of input that they get. And that we don't need thicker skin. We have measures that are suggesting that maybe our skin is getting too thick as is. And maybe we need more empathy and more compassion and more belonging and more safe spaces.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. I really do. Get kids communicating with each other. When I can insult you in writing anonymously, it's creating an environment that's completely different from if I were to stand in front of you and say those same things. Your reaction to those words would change me, would change the way I speak to the next person. And we don't have those exchanges. We don't have that reciprocity of emotion.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, Tara. I know that one of the things you do as a family is also that you have family pillars. Can you speak more about what those are and how you came about having family pillars? Like when I think about my upbringing, I think my family had pillars, but we never actually voiced them. It's sort of like the unconscious family culture that was created. But it sounds like you and your family have been conscious and purposeful about what you've created.
Yes, absolutely. It's something that I created when my children were younger because I felt like I was constantly having to recite the rules. And I think a lot of parents can empathize with that statement and relate to that statement. We feel like we're not really so much role models as we are guards or drill sergeants. It's, we don't jump on the sofa and we don't poke our brother and we don't put things up our nose and we don't call people that name and we don't do this and we don't do that. And what we're finding is children don't set out to break our rules. We just have too many. It's like everything suddenly becomes a rule when you have kids. And so what we've established are family pillars. One of our family pillars is we are kind, and we are respectful, and we are honest, and we are patient, and we are gentle. And so that falls into, if your child is acting in a way that's not respectful, instead of saying, we don't poke our brother or we don't call people that name, the fact of the matter is what you did respectful or not? Is what you did kind or not? We don't take things from people. That's not kind and that's not respectful. We don't yell at people. That's not gentle and that's not patient. When we have family pillars, it becomes a lot easier to follow the rules.
I just want to highlight some amazing things in what you just said there. Firstly, reminds me of a time where we were teaching in the positive psychology curriculum that you've done with us. If you recall, there's the exercise where we practice saying no. And I've realized that most of the moms in our class go, oh, I'm really good at saying no. I say no all day long. Can I have some ice cream? No. Can I do this? No. Can I go here? No. And so she's like, I'm actually really good at this one. I'm good at saying no. And as you said, so much of the day can be spent upholding rules and feel like you're just a drill sergeant knowing all the time. But when you add this point about adding pillars, not only does it give you and your family an opportunity to know what the rules are because you've got these pillars, but you also can take the time to recognize, celebrate, and appreciate when pillars are being upheld, as opposed to what happens when you only have the negative. If the only thing you have is the thing that you don't do, it's basically exactly the difference between traditional psychology and positive psychology. Traditional psychology, right, was trying to figure out what should we not do or how do we prevent dis-ease. And positive psychology is saying, well, what should we be doing and adding to promote mental health and well-being? And so I'm recognizing, and I don't have children yet, and I appreciate, Tara, so much that you're giving me things to add to my, when I have a family, I will. And even right now, even though I'm a family of myself and 2 fur babies, I can think, what are our pillars right now? Because it's about adding and not subtracting, right? Which is just such an inspiration. Thank you so much, Tara. I truly appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here with us, sharing your laughter, your strengths with us, and thank you for doing what you're doing in the world.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amelia. It was a blast. I had a great time.
Follow the link to read Tara's complete interview on our Practitioner Corner blog in partnership with Live Happy magazine. For more research-based tools for helping people thrive and to learn about our practitioner certification programs, visit us at www.theflourishingcenter.com or call us at 844-FLOURISH. Thanks for listening, and until we meet again, may you each find your own flourishing center.